Greetings and welcome to another episode of Sonic Odyssey, the video channel dedicated to bringing you music from the last 5 decades or so in review and discussion format. Before we begin, let's get the housekeeping out of the way. Be sure to like the video, share the video through social media channels, and be sure to subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all things Sonic Odyssey. Also, you can check out our Patreon page. There's a link for it in the show description below the video. And consider becoming a patron. Anything from a couple of dollars a month upwards. You can have your name listed at the end credits of each video. And you can even go so far as to select an album for me to review. So that's the housekeeping out of the way, and now we can move on to the body of today's discussion. Today we're going to be talking about a band out of England, and they go by the name of Ultravox. Ultravox, originally stylized with an exclamation point at the end of the name, was formed in 1974. Under the moniker Tiger Lily. That later changed in about 1976. They changed to Ultravox with the exclamation point at the end of their name. At the time, their lead vocalist was a gentleman by the name of John Fox, and with John Fox on vocals, the band released 3 moderately successful albums. They didn't have tremendous success, but they weren't ultimate failures either. However, in 1979, John Fox decided that he wanted to embark on a solo career, and therefore that left the rest of the band in a little bit of a state of uncertainty. That is until keyboardist Billy Currie worked alongside vocalist, guitarist, and synthesist Midge Ure on a project called Visage. Midge Ure was brought on board, and Ultravox dropped the exclamation point from their name. The Midge Ure years were primarily considered the most successful point for the band, and this was from 1979 through 1988 until the band broke up. The core members of the band were Chris Cross on bass, synths, and backing vocals, Warren Cann on drums, electronic percussion, and backing vocals, and Billy Currie on synthesizers, keyboards, violin and viola, and backing vocals, and the occasional lead vocal, and Midge Ure on lead vocals, guitars, and synthesizers. The lineup of the band remained the same for that entire period, during which they released 5 very successful and high-charting albums. The album that we're looking at today is their second release as this quartet, and their fifth release overall as a band. It's entitled Rage in Eden. So Rage in Eden is a slightly heavier album and a little bit more powerful than its predecessor, which was the chart-topping album Vienna. We're going to dive into today's music with a sample from the title track, Rage in Eden. So let's get straight to it. Here is a bit of Rage in Eden.
lifeless forms, stark and petrified. The high suspense of an empty stage, drawing in, clutching to its breast. With murmured words we sang and focus on the main facade. Beyond the hard, reluctant windows, news from magazines. We wrote their names on books we'd borrowed, as if to bring us closer still. And threw it all away to focus on the main facade. Raging even jigsaw sequence, but no one could see it.
As you can hear in Rage in Eden, the song tempo is moderately mid-tempo to high tempo and quite danceable in its form. The majority of the music on Rage in Eden is, it falls into the danceable category. That was something that the new wave movement strongly differed in from the punk movement, although obviously in the punk movement there was the pogoing and slam dancing associated with punk rock music, but new wave music was more traditional disco style dancing than not. The most down-tempo song on the album happens to be the last track, which is entitled Your Name Has Slipped My Mind Again. And that song is the closing part of a 3-track grouping. It's not really a concept, but it is 3 interconnected songs. There's no break between them. Accent on Youth, The Ascent, and Your Name Has Slipped My Mind Again. Accent on Youth is a more danceable song and more mid to up-tempo song. The Ascent is just a 2-minute, 20-second instrumental piece as a bridge, and then it comes into this very somber Your Name Has Slipped My Mind Again. You know, while Ultravox was definitely a new wave band, they were also writing songs that were highly danceable with tempos and beats that could be gyrated to on the dance floor. Among their singles for the album were 2. There was the first single, which was released prior to the album. Rage in Eden was released in September 1980. September 1981. And in August of 1981, they released the single The Thin Wall. And then after the album's release, they released a single for the first track on the album called The Voice. So for the sake of giving you a bit of idea of what the sound was at that time, let's take a brief listen to the first single and 5th track on the album, The Thin Wall.
Just living lines from books we've read with atmospheres of this
lot of the lyrics on Ultravox's albums are in the surreal category. They don't necessarily write romantic ballads or things of that nature, although on some later albums they would get into a little bit more storytelling, but for the most part they were offbeat lyrics and a little bit surreal. The majority of Rage in Eden falls into that category. And Ultravox as a band really has a great niche in the music history in the period from 1979 through 1988. They were consistent in their output. They did evolve their sound somewhat from Vienna through Rage in Eden, Quartet, Lament, and Ultravox. They always stayed, heavily into the synths and into the keyboards, into the new wave elements of the music, and keeping it usually danceable. But they did mature, and especially their final album together in 1986, Ultravox, was a brilliant album and probably worthy of its own review. So I would give Rage in Eden a solid and happy 4 out of 5 stars. It really has a wonderful feeling to it. There's never a downbeat moment, even in Your Name Has Slipped My Mind Again, which is a bit of a somber piece, but it is still a feeling of moving along through this wonderful ride of music that the rest of the album has carried you on. So that's all I have to say about Rage in Eden. I thank you very much for your time, and I hope that you'll consider visiting my Patreon page. Please do remember to like, share, and subscribe. And I also look forward to seeing you again next week in my new video. I may be a little bit late getting the next video out because I've got a very, very hectic week of appointments coming up for myself next week, but I will do my best to try and stay on schedule, so forgive me if I fail in that regard. Otherwise, that's it. It's been great talking to you. Thank you for letting me into your lives, and have a great day. Bye.